from the glorious city of Melbourne
and live from the USA,
your superstar hosts, Michael Sopel.
I'm going to say we play and win a final.
Sam Manhannett.
The top four.
Like it.
Carlton.
There it is. There it is. I was waiting for it.
This is In the Ballpark.
Hello and welcome to another edition of In the Ballpark. I'm Sam Manhannett, of course, joined by Michael Sopel. Round 7 we are at. It's underway. We're about to preview and put out the big, massive Anzac Day game that, as of today, is happening today. We'll talk about last night's first feature of Anzac Round, Melbourne and Richmond at the MCG, and then we'll preview the rest of the round, but we'll get into some news first off. How's your week been, and what exciting things from last weekend's footy has stood out to you, Michael?
Oh, Sammy, I was a very, very nervous watcher watching that Essendon West Coast Eagle game. You know, we were kind of criticising the fixture a little bit about the time slot that was in, but in the end, it ended up being a really good game, and the West Coast Eagles definitely did not lose any supporters, and they actually got quite a few supporters there for that fixtured game. So, well done to them for showing up. Of course, it had to be against Essendon. So, you know, in the end, the 4 points, we weren't the first team to fall on our swords to the West Coast Eagles, but you would think with that kind of performance they'll get a win somewhere, but be fascinating to see where they'll get it from, Sammy. But the weather's nice here in San Diego, plenty of baseball happening, nearing in on summertime, I think less than 30 days, so very exciting time here, Sammy boy. NBA finals are happening at the moment, so plenty happening there. And heading up to LA very soon, so potentially go and see a Dodgers game live. But I tell you what, Sammy, being reigning world champs, they're not cheap tickets.
I can imagine. Okay, let's get into the news of the week, and we'll start off with Noah Bolter. We spoke about him on our show last week. A sentence has been handed down from the court, and he's been given a curfew, which will affect his ability to play interstate games and night games. So I think it's 10 o'clock. There's already been some Richmond fans hoping that he could play up to halftime and then rush home. A few have put their house up nearby the MCG saying he could stay over. So a bit funny, that one. But interesting one, the way this whole process has been handled, and hopefully we don't really see anything like it, because it shouldn't have got to this stage. But it does make me think whether the judge handed it down this way to affect his football purposely, just because the way that maybe the club and the AFL were probably negligent to maybe the extent of what he did. I don't know. What do you feel about that and the sentencing?
Yeah, when I heard about curfew, I'm like, this is going to make it really, really compromising for him in his football. And even though Richmond are in a bit of a lower ebb now with the fact that they're, probably not going to feature in finals, and they're rebuilding, those afternoon time slots, but still being a big club, they're going to get those night games here and there. So it is definitely going to be affecting his schedule, and I'm sure that may have been part of the thinking. But whether I would have to look into other cases, Sam, and see whether these kind of things with curfew, with people going out at night and kind of causing some panic, whether that is there's precedence out there, I would imagine, to that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's created purposely for him to do this, but at the same time it is going to affect his football, and it'll be fascinating to see how the club kind of manage him in this period of time. Do you know how long he has to do this for, Sam?
The period, I'm not sure.
It'll at least be for this season.
I dare say it's for the season. And it does make me think that the Richmond, will they be talking to the AFL? Because we all know we've got the rolling fixture for the second half of the year. Will they be asking for a few more day games? Which I think I don't think other clubs would be happy to be moved around just because of that reason.
For one player. He is a good player and he was important for their win, but at the same time, I don't think that's going to happen. But I wonder if Kevin Bartlett was one of those guys that offered up his house near the MCG.
So I hope that this is the last that we hear of this kind of thing. It shouldn't have got to this stage, and this should have all bubbled away in the background while he sat out for a couple of weeks. I think it was worse the way it probably come off because of what had happened. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for the next period or the next time an AFL player gets into trouble, because I'm sure it's not going to be the last.
It's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, other news. Now, did you watch the Sydney game? The SCG surface looked so bad. It was terrible. I know we complained a lot about the MCG last year in a certain part of the MCG where players were falling over due to Taylor Swift. But the SCG held a concert 4 weeks ago for Andrea Bocelli.
Great singer, by the way, the Italian, beautiful voice. But wow.
Not sure if it was worth having in season for games at the SCG. And it looked really bad. Lots of sand, and then players were close to being injured. I know a couple come off after falling over and stuff. So that was the worst I've seen a ground, and it was definitely not up to AFL standards. So I wonder if the AFL will be talking about to the SCG next year. But we should have a rule where the grounds cannot be used for a concert during the season. I know there's got to be other ways they make money, but surely the AFL contract at these grounds is so big enough that we don't need to have Andrea Bocelli. There's plenty of other venues he could have probably played at, including the joke that's been going around is the Opera House he didn't go to, which is the obvious choice.
That was an obvious choice.
And having it so close. I know because grounds don't recover that quick. They don't, and I would love to have seen the sweat on the brow of the groundskeeper as he tried to manage that.
Right.
So I don't think there's a game at the SCG for a few weeks yet, so hopefully they fix that up. Also in the news, there was a clip that went viral this week from the Brisbane Collingwood game last round. And it was of a Brisbane fan heckling on the fence, a fan from an older persuasion, and his false teeth flew out over the fence onto the wing, which a security guard had to pick up and return to him. Not sure if you want to be running to do that, but I thought that was a very funny clip that I saw. Have you seen any funny things from American sport, like false teeth level kind of fan interactions?
I don't think I've seen a lot of like false teeth coming out, but one thing that is sort of funny about, like, we had an English Premier League game on recently, and I don't know, Sam, if you've picked up on this because you're a big, watcher of the Premier League and other soccer leagues around the world, but the amount of snot that they just out of
the old snot rockets.
Oh, the rockets.
Yeah, I do see it. I do see it in the footy fair bit, but I think it's just because of how cold it is.
Right,
you get the cold and your nose is running, and you just got to get rid of it.
Right.
But it's always worse because the 4K cameras will have a close-up of it, and you can see it in super slow-mo as well. I think the directors have got to be a bit more I mean, it's hard to time that sort of thing, but it's not the greatest part of the game. And I'm sure the players are probably not thrilled that that's being captured.
Nope, they wouldn't be.
No.
Unless they've got endorsements of that kind of nature,
Yeah.
And Claritel or whatever it's called for the clear in the nose. Anyway.
Also, returning back to the SCG, a kid got banned for 2 years from the SCG Trust for throwing I think it was a paper clapper at...
or a record. Yeah, one of the two. Yeah, not a good
which
look,
is
Sammy.
not on. We've not seen. A lot of people are saying though that it's probably a bit harsh for 2 years, but I think the statement has to be made that
Has to.
you can't be throwing anything at a player. Doesn't matter what it is or who you are. If you do something like that, it's a danger because where do we draw the line?
Right.
I think you should know by entering the ground that that's not on. And I know as a young kid, but the point has to be made, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sam. And the other thing I was thinking about, just because I've obviously been watching a lot of American sport, watching a lot of our game, and the thing is, like, we're very privileged in Australia to be so close to the action.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of world sports like the soccer. You have these really patriotic fans, and quite often it gets violent. They are so far away from the pitch. Same
often
with
have,
baseball.
Fences up.
Fences up, you're right. Yeah, yep, exactly. Even NFL football, like you've got the massive benches and all of these areas for physio and stuff. The fans are nowhere near the players. And the fact that, like, I think it's a wonderful thing. Like, there's been all this footage because it's Anzac Day round. You've got that footage of the guy who was going to hand Cole Langford the ball and he drops it at his feet. And then Cole Langford snaps this goal and just points at him. Like, I love that fan interaction. I think it's one of the best things about our game. We don't want imbeciles like this, despite him being young, making these choices. And at the end of the day, it's a good thing that we're so close to the players, but at the end of the day, don't cross that line.
Yeah, because, we could, the AFL could turn around and say, hey, you can't sit in the first 3 rows or something.
Right.
Eventually. We hope it never get to that stage, but
Yeah.
but I love sitting on the fence. I love
wonderful.
You can get a whiff of the deep heat and you feel, it rolls me up sitting on the fence.
Yeah, it's so good. You feel like you're at the local footy, like you're just everything,
great.
the fights and the players engaging with the fans.
And I do heckle a bit more.
Yeah, you got to. And then you got to eat your humble pie when the player does something good from the opposition.
Very true,
That's
very
part
true.
of it,
All right,
wonderful.
round 7. Let's break it down, and we'll start off with Thursday night's game. It was Melbourne in the end by 20 points, but another gallant effort from these Tigers who won't disappear. They have more wins than were expected for this year and their level of football at the moment. So if you're a Tigers fan, I would be getting to games because I think they're putting out a good brand of football for where they're at. And it's exciting. You could probably start to see the next generation of the next Dusty to come through and the next premiership player for the Tigers. I know we're a long time away from that, probably. Well, I hope, because they've just come out of that success. But it's not all bad for them, and they've been making probably other clubs who have less wins at the moment questioning themselves a bit more. But Melbourne, I'm still not convinced. They had that better last quarter to kind of finish. They kind of broke the chain towards the end and the shackles off the Tigers. But for a while there in the first half, the skills were all over the shop. And I said this last night, watching the game. It looks like this is the first and only time that these group of players kick the ball to each other. That's what it looks like, that they don't have any training or anything. And this is the first time that there was no coherence between some of the players, and I think as an outside observer, that's probably a bit concerning. But they did finish off the game pretty well. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, obviously, gallant performance by the Tigers. I mean, they're really building something quite nice, and I think it's good because you get to see that Adam Muse is, there's a reason why he was selected in that coaching role, because it's sometimes hard, Sam, when teams are rebuilding, you don't really get to see the coach's credentials until, things really start to click and younger players get more games into them. But, you're already starting to see a brand, and, you can see some continuity there, and there's some really exciting moments of some of these players, these live wire forwards. I think they blooded another player there wearing number 50, so shout out to Ben Brown there for that one. And And, it's just wonderful to see there's all these, as you said, like Sam Lawley, there's just these players coming in that are going to be bona fide stars. Give them time. But, yeah, you're seeing the start of something really exciting. But, look, as you said, Demons still very sloppy. I'm not convinced either. I think playing that kind of football, you're not going to, feature anywhere near the finals. But in saying that, another All-Australian player potentially in Max Gawn. I mean, he was huge. He could have well been the difference on the night. Handful of disposals, but just, really clean with the footy and just very influential because, big Nank, he's a premiership ruckman and he towered him. So, it was a good performance from Gawney and obviously, Petrarca has been leading very highly this season, and Cozzy Pickett up in the forward line had a really strong performance. So, there's going to be a big contract on the table from Melbourne and potentially a Western Australian club, I think, for him because he's going to be a very top priority for Melbourne to try and keep him. And, it's performances like this that probably convince him a little bit more to stay. And it was actually a good outing from the D's fans, Sammy. I know we've been critical this season for not showing up at particular games, but they were out. So credit to them. They can show up. Yep. But, yeah, Melbourne needed that win, and that's what they did.
Yeah, like you're saying with Petrarca, 28 disposal with 2 snags, if you don't mind. So a good return to form for him. Bailey Fritsch comes back into the side and he kicked 2 snags, 2 goals, 2. Shining light for the Tigers though. Tom Lynch, was all over it in the forward line with 3 snags, 3. So interesting to see. I wonder what Richmond's fixture is for the next, and I wonder if a few clubs will be thinking, let's look at this game a bit more. In a bit more depth than probably we may have thought to look at.
Yes.
But, of course, the big game today, as of recording, is Collingwood and Essendon, Anzac Day, one of the biggest games of the year, and I'm sure one that's heavily on your calendar and pointed out throughout the season. What are your overall thoughts on Anzac Day as the day, but also the game itself? Because we've had some great moments over the years.
Oh, we really have, Sam. First and foremost, it is a privilege to play on this really sacred day. And, for me, my dad and my grandpa are both huge war historians. They're just really fascinated by Australian war history. And so, growing up, always books and films and memorabilia, different pieces of history around the house about Australians at war and the Anzac spirit was drilled into us at a very young age about what that meant. And, as a young nation at the time in 1915, the baptism by fire, fighting in Gallipoli and a lot of reenactments I got to see as a young kid. But going to the shrine, Sam, and I'm sure you've got really fond memories of this too, and going to the dawn service, there is really nothing like it. Obviously, very cold mornings in April, so getting right near the eternal flame is definitely priority. You got to get there early though. But when you hear that last post, you get shivers down your spine. And if you're fortunate enough to get a ticket to the Essendon Collingwood game, both fan groups start their day at the shrine, have the I think it's called the gunfire or the gunpowder breakfast, and then kind of slowly make their way to the MCG and they do the driving around the ground, some war veterans there, and of course the parade in the city after the Shrine of Remembrance. That's a huge feature in Melbourne, and then obviously the game comes and that last post with nearly 100,000 people silent at the MCG. There's honestly nothing like it, Sam. And every year that I've went, even when both teams aren't doing the best, even with, it's just I don't really have words. It's a really humbling, really special moment.
Tingling kind of moment.
It is.
The roar of the crowd from being completely silent to 100,000 people pretty much at the G. And the roar and the siren and everyone's ready to go. It's such, I don't know, it makes you proud to be Australian in that moment. Because you go through all that thinking, back to the war times and then, hey, we get to do something incredible now, and because of all of that, we get to sit here and witness a great football match with a great atmosphere, which many, of course, didn't get to return home. And the MCG actually put out a really good video this week, I've seen. Some big... because they all said... I think the Anzac Day game was started in the 90s, the mid-90s.
Correct.
Cheating.
Yep.
But the MCG actually pointed out there was a game on Anzac Day with war veterans that went to war. Played a game on that day before they went to war the next year or something. And there was footage of it. And so it's very interesting to see that kind of history and stuff. So I Collingwood and Essendon are two hater teams, but this is all a very exciting game every year. I'm pretty sure I played Auskick at halftime on Anzac Day
Sammy.
1 year. Yeah. Going back into the archives. So.
Wow.
But game memories I'm thinking about now, and the Zaharakas.
The Bombers are in front of the G. Oh, Sammy, I was watching that game at home. It was bucketing down rain. There was like a sun shower, and we were trailing for most of that game. And I think it was it Leroy Jetta in the forward line just could not pick up the ball. Harry O'Brien had a great game, knocks it over for a behind, and I'm like, Collingwood have got this with like 20 seconds to go, and ball gets bounced back in, and Zaharakas, I think it was like his first ever goal in AFL, and he says to this day, like he played on because he thought wet footy, this is a hard set shot, he just had to get momentum into it, that's why he played on, but he was saying in an interview this week he couldn't actually remember like the celebrations afterwards. All he could remember was like falling to the ground and watching the footy kind of deviate and go straight through. And one of the finest moments. But there's been some good Anzac Day clashes, Sammy. Like even one year, I think it was maybe 2012 or 2013. Like I think Brett Stanton snapped a goal and the Bombers got up very, very late in that game. And then was it Blair? Just got like a shin on it, and Collingwood stole it. So there's been some thrillers, and of course that very first Anzac Day game, for people out there not knowing, that was actually a draw. Last year, and they don't happen too often. But there's something powerful about that at the G.
30 years this year. This is the
30th anniversary. Wow. And some heroic performance. Like obviously the Anzac medal. I mean, best on ground, Sam. I mean, you obviously you can't replicate footy to war, but I just love the whole concept of you may be the best on ground, but if you're the most courageous and acts of your mates, like I think they're usually the medal that they look for. And so, Nathan Buckley, Scott Pendlebury, Still Sidebottom, James Hurd, Darcy Parish. There's been some beauties that have won that medal. Zaharakas did 1 year too.
And I think there's definitely a thing where clubs I heard this week on Footy Classified, Mick Malthouse was on with Kevin Sheedy, and they were talking about kind of the speeches and how do you get some of the young players built up and excited to play in such a clash. And you often see a lift from some young guys and players that because they play for this occasion, because you get inspired by hearing all these about these football players that never got to return home to Australia to play, and I think if you're a young kid, wow, what motivation for a game! It's incredible.
It's huge.
So it's often, as you say, heroic plays and stuff that you'll see. So I'm excited to see the ins and outs for this game. So of course, 3:20 Good Friday. That was last week. Anzac Day, of course. Which is, as of recording today, it is a wet day, so it will be a wet game. Yes. In for Collingwood, Dan Houston, Tim Membry and Lachlan Sullivan. Out, Darcy Moore, Mason Cox and Edward Allen. In for Essendon, Kyle Langford, Todd Goldstein. Out, Sam Draper, of course, with his injury, and Saad El Hawi. what are your thoughts on the ins and outs? I guess now the rain, because there was concern for Collingwood with Darcy Moore being out, that height. But now that this is a wet game, I really think this probably favours more to Collingwood, unfortunately, Michael.
Yeah, I think their ball movement, Sam, over the last couple of weeks has probably suggested that, a smaller forward line with more of a mosquito fleet is probably the way to go. And the Dons obviously have a few aerial threats in their forward line. Even though Langford, coming in, and obviously that's a great story. He's a bit of an Anzac Day specialist now, and he's kind of that medium height, but at the same time, he can be pretty dangerous at ground level too. It probably does suit Collingwood ever so slightly in that department, but Todd Goldstein, the third ruckman, who was just sitting back, probably coaching more than anything. And here he is, So, all reports is, he just takes really good care of himself as a 30-year-old. And, he's not getting any younger, but he does take good care of himself. And I think that, he just slots right in and obviously will put up a good fight. So, obviously really sad for Sam Draper. He was in career best form. But, it'll be fascinating to see maybe what the Dons do in the mid-season draft or mid-season trade period, maybe bringing someone a little more experienced in that's on the outer in some VFL clubs just to cover that gap.
I often think in these games, doesn't matter where you are on the ladder, both teams stand up in this game, and the Bombers have done in the last couple of years. Obviously, we had the drawn one. You played twice last year, so
we
there was
did,
a game where you won by 2 goals.
Yep.
So before the one that was drawn was Collingwood by 70. Don't want to bring that one up. But they've probably got the wood over you the last couple of Anzac days.
Yeah.
I'm going to play it safe and I'm going to tip Collingwood. But are you confident that Bombers can come out and give it a real crack?
Oh, I am confident. I think despite last week just narrowly beating the Eagles, I think, as you said there, Sam, you just get a natural bounce from games like this. And, I was looking back at Essendon's game in 2021 where we had a lot of youngsters in that team, that were selected in that 2020 draft, and they played really good footy, Archie Perkins, Nick Cox. So you're going to get a lift from a lot of youngsters who haven't played in this particular fixture before, and I'm sure it'll be the same for the Pies as well with some of their new players that haven't played in this fixture before. I am going to tip the Pies just out of safety as well, but I do really think that the Dons can give this a good crack, and you'll get a natural bounce because it is such a big occasion, Sammy. And it's also worth mentioning, because Darcy Moore is out, Nick Dacos will be captaining the Pies. So this will, I think, be one of their youngest captains in history. I think he's only 22, so that is significant, and I'm sure he'll be great for them in this particular occasion.
I brought him into my Supercoach this week and captained him. So
there you go. You go.
Hopefully he gets a good score. Okay, the other Anzac Day clash, Fremantle and Adelaide Crows. Now, is this the second or third year that they've had a second game on Anzac Day?
Yeah, they've been doing it. They've been doing it a little bit, Sam. I don't mind it, but usually I'm pretty emotionally spent by the time we get to this game, just being a Don supporter.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fremantle take on the Adelaide Crows at Optus Stadium. 8:10 p.m. Corey Wagner comes in for Fremantle. Heath Chapman, Quinton Narkle, James Aish out, Jager O'Meara out, and Bailey Banfield. Adelaide Crows, Josh Rosselli comes in, James Peatling out, Darcy Fogarty and Sam Berry. Fremantle Adelaide, it's a great clash to put on today. This is exciting one, and I'm really struggling to kind of put a definite tip on either side here. Obviously, we're wanting to see, or have been spruiking up the Dockers. This is a home chance. Adelaide already been pretty impressive so far this year, so they're going to bring something to the table as well. And of course, being this big occasion, I think we're going to get a thrilling game, because I was saying this last night as well, watching the Thursday and Friday night games. So far this year, I can't say that they have been much of a spectacle. The games that have been on the primetime slots have been pretty ordinary. But I think this one will be a cracker. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got to agree with you, Sammy. And shout out to the aesthetics as well. I mean, both clubs got some really great Anzac Day jerseys. I can't seem to think how long these Anzac Day jerseys have been. It's just traditionally been the Anzac appeal on the jumpers on Anzac Day, Collingwood, Essendon. But you are starting to see some really bold designs now, and I really love the person playing the bugle on the Adelaide Crows one. I think they did a similar one last year at Dawn, and Fremantle's got a really nice one with kind of like the reef as well. So I think they're fantastic jerseys, and it's good to see some other clubs have also started to populate that space too. So really big fan of that. But this is a fascinating one. That was as poor of a performance as I've seen from Fremantle, almost like their first game against Geelong. They just really, Melbourne were there for the picking, and they really could have put some gaps on the rest of the competition with that win. But no, they were pretty disappointing. You'd expect a bounce here, but yeah, Adelaide beating GWS in a pretty sloppy game was an important win for them as well. And I think Adelaide you just have to say on form, I'm going to tip them in this one, despite it being in the West. But I'd expect a bit of a bounce from Fremantle. That was a very disappointing performance last week, Sammy. You got to say pressure's on the coach.
Pressure's definitely on the coach. I'm going to swing the other way. I'm going to take Freo. I think the DNA that they've got there and some of the recruits, I think they've got a good list. And I think they're going to be very dominant at home. But I'm expecting a deadly Crows forward line performance. So it's going to be definitely high scoring. But I think Fremantle will snap this one in a tight one as a bounce back. Saturday we move on to now 1:20 p.m. Marvel Stadium. St Kilda take on the Brisbane Lions. And disappointing for the Saints after a smashing by the Bulldogs. Just when things were starting to look really nice for the Saints, playing out of their skin a bit, it got a bit of a reality check with the Bulldogs there. What are we thoughts with Saints? Because I still lost with them. I still think they're a decent way off. They're playing above their level at the moment, but a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah, definitely, Sam. I think this is probably where the majority of the AFL world expected them to be at the moment. They do have a lot of good young players, and obviously Nazaya Wanganeen-Malira has been incredible, and Jack McRae, who's a bit of an older player, has really shown his worth as a midfielder and kind of reminded the competition that, hey, this guy was All-Australian not that many years ago, and he's had that blazer before. So, there's clearly good players on that list, but, I think teams have done their homework and they've went, okay, well, if you put a heavy tag on him and you quell the influence of Nazaya Wanganeen-Malira's ball skills, then all of a sudden they've got a lot of weaknesses. And Jack Sinclair's another good ball user. You can put some pressure on him, play one-on-one. All of a sudden, the rest of the team probably doesn't carry their weight. So probably a bit of a reality check now, taking away their weapons. And so Ross will have to adapt to that. And he's done this before. But, you'd have to say, particularly in this game against Brisbane, it's going to be a tough task. And I did see a stat the other day. I don't think the Saints have bet Brisbane at Marvel for quite some time, Sammy.
Right, okay. Interesting. And we all know how important it is for the Lions. They want to get wins. Melbourne, it may not be at the G, but Marvel win in Melbourne is an aim for the Lions, of course. Ins and outs, St Kilda have named Dougal Howard, Isaac Keeler out, Ari Schoenmaker, Liam Henry. Brisbane have named Kai Lohman and Sam Marshall out. I will definitely be tipping the Lions in this one. 4:15, we move on to Port Adelaide take on North Melbourne. And, the pressure had been on. All the talk this week was Clarko. Is he still the right man? Can he be as good as he was in the Hawks days? Was on repeated verbatim throughout the week. So can we expect a response after that terrible Friday performance. Good Friday was not a good Friday for North Melbourne fans. At one point, because I was there with my mate, and he was not having a good time. At one point, the whole crowd was chanting "bullshit, bullshit" some of the decisions, and the commentary team was like, remember, this game's for the kids, guys. They're here in attendance. So they were not happy North fans, and I don't blame them. Can we expect to see a big response from them this week?
Yeah, look, I think you're going to get a better performance, but at the same time, is it going to be enough to beat Port Adelaide, who are in some really good form at the moment, Sammy? I do like the debate around, is Clarko the right guy? We clearly know he's a masterful coach, but as we know, you need a lot of factors going your way as a football club to get the right people in to do something.
It's not just the coach. There's so many things. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts around it. And a lot of people were saying too, maybe he doesn't have the class and assistance that he once did.
Potentially.
The time away from the game where they were dealing with the Hawthorn situation and things like that. So I think, unfortunately, and I went through this as a Carlton fan too, you get to a stage where it's rebuild after rebuild. You're starting to get real impatient. Hey, when are we going to be... This is annoying now. We should be having a good year, especially after everyone's spruiking them up. Hey, we're finally going to get to see a decent year from North Melbourne. So, look, I still think that we'll see some improvement this year. I know the only kind of real win this year and good performance was against Melbourne, but there was signs in that game that they do have something underneath. So, hey, if they come out and upset Port, well, what a story that would be. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case over at the Adelaide Oval, 4:15 Saturday. Ins and outs for that: Joe Richards, Jeremy Finlaysons, and Joe Berry comes in for Port Adelaide. Out Rory Atkins, Travis Boak, and Tom Cochrane. North Melbourne have named Caelan Dawson, Jackson Archer, and Riley Hardiman. He's kind of swing the axe here, Clarko. Out comes Aidan Corr, Griffin Logue, and Zach Fisher. So a lot of defenders coming straight out.
Bit of seniority there. Fascinating. Couple of those players that were traded in to North from some other clubs. So clearly, expecting a bit of a bounce there and sending a message which, a senior coach like Clarko should be doing. Going to tip Port Adelaide in this one, Sam. They've been really good and hard to believe they win this one, and they've won 3 in a row. So it just goes to show that, we're very quick to, bury teams, but
I know, and
it just goes to show it can really turn.
Do other sports do this as much? Do you notice with the American coverage, do they pile on a team as soon as they have a bad game in a similar way, or is this just an Australian thing and footy that we rule a team out straight away as soon as we possibly can?
It's really interesting, and I'm likening it, I think basketball's really different because they just play so regularly. Like, if a team loses, they go, oh, well, we've got another 2 road games, and then we go home. It's ridiculous. But I would say for NFL football, it's one of those mentalities because there's so many teams and there's so many resources poured in, Sam. It's like every week, if a team upsets another team, it's not really a surprise because it's almost implied that anyone can beat anyone. So it's fascinating, but I feel like the AFL, we really go hard at teams that lose.
Tall poppy kind of syndrome, maybe element as well. We love to whack a team when they're down.
Oh, you love it. Yeah. And then when your team's on the receiving end, we don't.
No. And I've been across that many times. All right, Saturday night. Yeah. Saturday night, 7:35 p.m. At Manuka Oval. The return of this big modern rivalry, the Giants and the Western Bulldogs. This is becoming a favourite fixture for many across the season. Of course, it goes back to the big clash, I think it was the prelim final.
Prelim final, 2016.
Goes back that long now, and they don't like each other. Who is the better Western team, the best of the Western community? GWS Giants have named Jesse Hogan and Callum Brown out Western Bulldogs, Jed Buslinger, Latham Badamir and James Harms comes in. Out Liam Jones, Lachlan McNeil and Sam Darcy. Now, unfortunately, of course, it is not great news about Sam Darcy, but it's better news than we could have had with a potential ACL. So he's still going to miss probably the season at this stage. But I think it's what a shame.
God, man, like our sport is so cruel at times. Like he was freaking like no one could lay a finger on him. He was going to get an All-Australian blazer, but a lot of people have been saying this week that I think they were likening it to Paul Salmon. He got injured very early on in his Essendon career, and he was flying. I think they said he like kicked 60 goals or something crazy in a season, and he was just absolutely on fire. And he got injured, and he just thought, God, man, end of my career. Like, what's going to happen? And he came back a couple of seasons later and became just a Hall of Famer. And so it just goes to show, he's very early on in his career. He's clearly lighting it up. He would have loved to play the remainder of the season and just went to strength. But hopefully for this big boy, he puts on some more muscle, he comes back and just does it all again. But yeah, we hate to see it, but at the same time, hopefully very early on in a very long and very illustrious career, Sammy boy.
What are we feeling about this one? This kind of maybe GWS probably performing a bit better overall this season. Their ladder position at the moment. And Bulldogs probably playing a bit better than we've probably thought they were. I know we've said that a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Getting the magnificent Bont back playing. Something else. It just adds another layer to them. So I'm expecting... I'm tipping the Giants, but not with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I can see an upset happening in this one, Sammy. I'm gonna tip the woof woofies, and I mean, the Giants have been pretty good at Manuka, and this I remember. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but they absolutely spanked the Brisbane Lions in this Anzac Day fixture. So when they get going and when Big Jesse gets going, they are very, very exciting to watch. But yeah, the doggies, there's been something about them. And with the Bont back, they've gotten games into these youngsters. They've defined their roles. I think that's the one thing we can't forget about Luke Beveridge is, yes, sometimes he has some questionable omissions and there's players that are knocking the door down in the VFL. He doesn't play them, but then he finds players as well. And so, he's been able to do that with a lot of role players this season. And already we're starting to see that, he's got another fleet really of players that can just come in and fill a role and be really good AFL standard players. So going to tip the doggies in this one. And who would have thought, Sammy, another GWS or Western Bulldogs 2 GWS player, Jakey Stringer, the Jakey Stringer Cup. Oh my gosh, who would have thought? Oh man!
And Carlton, why did we let Matthew Kennedy go? How good's a year has he been going since he's moved on?
Phenomenal, mate. Phenomenal.
It's another one we're like, why did we let him go? Why did we not? One of those things.
One of those fun ones.
Oh well. So Giants for me, and you said the Dogs. So looking forward to that. A Saturday night special. Sunday we move on to the Gold Coast Suns host the Sydney Swans at People First Stadium up on the Gold Coast at 1:15. Sydney struggling at the moment. We know we've got their injury problems, but they haven't been anywhere near their level and still look a tad lost for me and the kind of group that they're playing with. And, of course, Suns last week, the Tigers knocked them up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if...
We know what it is, Sam. It's Marvel Stadium at Dimmer. They just...
Dimmer. It's just a curse. Dimmer's curse, just like the Hawthorn
Kennett
curse.
Yeah.
We've got a Dimmer curse
with
Marvel
call.
Stadium.
It's a good call, Sammy.
And I don't know if Dimmer is getting too caught up in the politics and
I
not
did
his
say
own
that.
football club. So maybe he needs to focus on the team a bit more rather than running for Parliament. I don't know.
I always thought he'd make a good politician, Dimmer. He's so opinionated.
So,
Shoot.
interesting one. Let's look at the ins and outs for this game. Oh, it's extended teams at the moment, so I can only see a couple of ins here. So, Braden Farini for the Gold Coast Suns, Ned Moyle and Sam Closeley. Is that how you say it? Closeley? Sydney Swans, Ben Patton, Peter Laddams and Angus Sheldrick, named extended at the moment. Suns, I'm expecting a bounce back because they've played really well this year. I think that they let that one slip at Marvel, and Swans are vulnerable at the moment. I think the Suns will bounce back and get this done, Michael.
Sammy boy, when I saw Ben Patton's name, I had no idea he got traded from the Saints to the Swans. When did that happen? When did that happen? It must have happened last trade period. I honestly, that got me by surprise. Anyway, that caught me off guard. I didn't know he played for the Swans. Anyway, well, welcome to the Swans. I wonder if that's his first game. Apologies if it's like his 50th game for the Swans and I just haven't noticed him.
That's what happens when you move to the USA. You get out of the loop.
Yeah, that's right, Sammy. Look, both teams are not in form right now, but you just, based on what you've seen from the Gold Coast, you probably trust them a little bit more. And quick shout out to their jersey here. This is the only time where red on red works, Sammy. They've put the poppies into their jersey. Shout out, go and buy that with your pink salmon one. I'm a fan of this aesthetically.
This one. I've not seen this one.
Yeah, I like this one. This is a good poppy red on red. So graphics design team, if you're listening, well done, Gold Coast. Look, I'm going to tip the Gold Coast in this one, Sammy boy. I just think you got to bounce back. And is this at the SCG or up at Heritage? It's at Heritage.
People first.
Yeah, people first. Sorry, I keep getting a Metricom. Carrara.
Yes, that's correct.
Look, Dimmer and the Gold Coast like playing here, so I'm going to tip them there.
Okay. Carlton and Geelong at the MCG Sunday afternoon, 3:20. Extended teams at the moment. Sam Doherty named, Harry Mackay named, and Lockie Cowan. Geelong have named O'Sheen Mullen, Oliver Wiltshire, Mitch Duncan, Jai Clark out, Brian Myers.
Underrated game of the round, just about, Sammy, in a weird way.
Yeah, I've listened to a few other things and people have been very quick to jump on the Cats, but we had a very good game last season. Out of the two games that we played Geelong, one was really terrible. The other one was very defining.
It was.
And I feel that we match up pretty well with Geelong. And it's been probably pretty even for the last couple of seasons, maybe. Maybe a little bit more lenient on their side. But Carlton, I know we've only played North Melbourne and West Coast, but this would be if we get this done, we'll be getting the season back on track very quickly.
You beat back.
So I'd like to think we're going to come out. It's going to be a hard challenge. They will definitely be up and about and excited from their Easter Monday clash. Got a shorter day break. Carlton's had a big break, big 9-day to freshen up. Whether that comes into it, don't really know. Good to see Harry back in.
Good to see Harry back.
I'm sure
yes.
he's ready to go now. He's probably disappointed he only got to play that little bit of the game in Adelaide. So shootout style game, hopefully. Oh, and it was so exciting to see some of the young guns, Will White kicking his first AFL goal, and some of the Mosquito style fleet, the smaller players really getting around it. Corey Durden.
Oh, yeah.
Jesse Motlop.
Jesse Motlop was good, yeah.
So to get a bit of confidence back. So what can we see? What we're going to bring to the table? I feel like we're a good position coming as the non-favourites. I always like us as not the favourite.
I was going to say I'm bullish on the Blues in this game, Sammy. I really think the Cats don't want to have an off week in this one, and the Cats have shown that they are vulnerable. If you can really pressure them and you can take out their really pivotal players, and yes, they have contributors all around the field, but they're certainly not indestructible. And, if I'm a Blues supporter, I'm thinking, 2 good weeks of football. We blow out the teams we're meant to, 70 points or whatever it is, winning average margin. Yes, you can only play who's in front of you, but you could have easily fallen over in those 2 games. You weren't confident for both, but, you find yourself here, a real contender in Geelong. And, mate, if you can beat them, I'm telling you, the lid is just...
It's all about confidence and belief. And
it's all about confidence, baby. There you go, Jimmy. That one's for you. Are you tipping him? Are you tipping him, Sammy boy? Come on.
Well, I have to. I've tipped them every other week, and it's stuffy tipping competitions. So far, I'm losing all of them. Oh God.
Look, I'm gonna tip the Cutters, but I'm telling you, Sammy, something's coming. Something's coming. All right.
I just when we're underdogs and everyone has us against the wall, we really do come out. I'll be eating humble pie next week. Let's see. So massive one, and get to hear, of course, the Bugle and Anzac. So it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Oh, they're going to do it there. That's huge.
So they do it for every round, every game of the round.
Massive, Sam. I love that. Well done, AFL.
Hawthorn v West Coast for the last game of the round, 4:45, Marvel Stadium.
Battle of the Birds.
Battle of the Birds, yes.
Sam Mitchell Cup, right? He was at the Eagles for a little while there, wasn't he? Yeah.
When was that? Was it coaching assistant?
Yeah, he was coaching, but he played 1 season there too, Sammy, which was definitely an odd look. He kind of looked like a more stocky Mark Lacroix. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a part of the deal. So, but anyway, they weren't contending that year.
Now, we've seen a bit of Hawthorn lacked a bit of confidence. Probably Monday's game was really good, but a few players like James Sicily didn't look up to scratch. Probably playing a bit him out of position and a few other things. Are we starting to see some Hawthorn jitters where these young guys and things like that, this is where the cracks can start to show? Like you're saying, good West Coast performance. The time's going to come when they're going to get this win. Could they shock everyone and get a win here?
Well, I mean, it is away from the MCG, Sammy, and I would have 100% put house, car, possessions on the Hawks if it was at the G, but at Marvel, you just don't know. I mean, I know they've created Optus Stadium to be like the G, but not a traditional place, not a traditional happy hunting ground for the Hawks. I'm still confident that they'll bounce back, but yeah, this is a bit of a danger game, Sammy. Are you brave enough to tip the West Coast Eagles?
No, I'm not. No. I don't know Hawks' Marvel record. And how many games a season do they play at Marvel? Doesn't seem like many.
Probably like Richmond, not many.
Yeah. Extended teams for the moment. Bailey McDonald, Henry Hustwaite, Finn McGuinness and Jack Ginnivan come in for Hawthorn. Out Connor Nash with the suspension. West Coast Eagles, Tom Cole, Oscar Allen, Tyler Brockman, Noah Long, Sandy Brock, out Harry Edwards and Tim Kelly. So a couple interesting changes there.
Yeah, Eagles were good last week, Sammy. Despite not having Oscar Allen in there, they were really good.
One
and
part
Elijah
that annoyed
Hort.
me. Elijah Hewitt, definitely amazing. Good. But the one thing that really annoyed me last week, because I thought they almost had you at one point during that game, but it was Flying Ryan in that last couple of minutes. Didn't go for goal. Just popped it up.
Right.
And it got turned over. So
it did. That was a big moment too, Sam. They could have really, put the pressure on, and by the time they kicked that last goal, it was like maybe 20 seconds on the clock. It wasn't enough time. So, yeah. I think Nick Martin reminded them that, hey, I trained with you guys. You probably should have picked me up, because he seems to like playing against them, which is good. But yeah, going to tip the Hawks in this one, Sammy. But West Coast, a really good performance. Like, we were pretty concerned about whether they'd be just non-competitive for the whole season. So that was a good performance.
and that is round 7. So we're starting to see the shape of the kind of ladder now. Now, the ladder's not the true ladder in the sense that we've got games that... so well done, the AFL. We've got to deal with this all year, looking at it. But just a bit of a reminder of the top 8 as it sits at the moment. Collingwood on top, Brisbane second. So the 2 premiership winners from the last couple of years. Gold Coast Suns sit in 3rd at the moment. Giants behind them. Then the Adelaide Crows, Geelong, Hawthorn and the Bulldogs round out.
Oh.
And then Fremantle, Port, Essendon, St Kilda, Carlton, Sydney. And the bottom 4 at the moment, Melbourne, Richmond, North Melbourne and the West Coast Eagles. So, interesting.
Oh, very interesting. And I'd love to know what the gap is between those games, Sammy, in those maybe bottom 2 positions in the 8, because I feel like there's not much separating them.
No, it's probably just percentage and maybe a game or 2. So.
Maybe a game or 2. Wow.
Interesting one. So round 7, exciting, Anzac, passionate. Always, I think it's a favourite moment of the year, these Anzac Round. Everyone's, I don't know, I think everyone appreciates being there a little more and the getting to experience of the game, so the crowds are up and about. It's a great time to be a football fan.
I love it.
So, and we're starting to finally, still being unnaturally warm here, but we're getting some cooler days. So, exciting round 7 ahead. Thank you, of course, for listening to In the Ballpark. Of course, I'm Sam and Hennett, joined by Michael Sapel. You can catch all our content across Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can watch the full-length video versions of the podcasts and some funny tidbits here and there. We'll have to set up in a few weeks, Michael, when Carlton play Essendon, that we get some of your reactions on Instagram and some of mine as well.
We'll have to, Sammy. It might be a game that I might just stay up a little bit late for, so I can give you grief throughout. But thanks again for this episode, Sammy. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and for all those current service men and women out there, and also our fallen soldiers that have fought so bravely for whatever nation you follow, lest we forget.
News, reviews and previews this AFL season.
Listen to In the Ballpark. Download the podcast now.